My name is Paco Nunez. I spent the better part of 10 years being the news editor for the Tribune newspaper. Before that, I was a reporter at the same place. And since then, I've been doing public relations and marketing, both that target domestic markets and, as we were discussing, markets overseas for products that are made here, or services that are from here. And what I want to do is give you a method of going from an idea and you're thinking around that idea to how you produce a product and how you get ready to market that both locally and internationally. A lot of people have an idea and they nurture an idea for many years, and if you've ever tried, you know, you collect information around it and you collect more information and more, and then what you end up with is this mass of disorganized information, and it's very difficult to then know what direction to take it in. How do you tell the story of this product or this service, whatever it is? And the reason I think that my background in journalism is helpful is really was a similar thing. As a reporter, essentially what you do, you go to an assignment, you go to an event, or you go to a press conference, and especially as a rookie, you're bombarded with information, with official reports and people's opinions about the official reports and all this massive information, and your job is essentially to come back and streamline that into a product, an intellectual product, in that case, a story, and have it targeted towards the market that you're after. In that case, the domestic newspaper readership. That's who you're after. And you have to understand them and you have to know what it is that they want so that you can decide how you're going to organize this information. As an editor, it's the same thing, but on a bigger scale. What you do is you take other people's streamlined information, their articles, their story, and you organize it into another product with, again, the thing that's most impactful to your target market at the top, being the headline, being the lead story. And you construct a newspaper starting with that, and you work down in declining order of importance to your market. That's what a newspaper is. That's what a story is as well. At the same time as I was the news editor at the Tribune, I was also the local stringer for the Associated Press. If anyone doesn't know, that's a newswire. It's a global newswire. And the way it works is they have stringers in every country. And now you're again selecting information, but what you're doing is making a product that aims at an international market. And it's different from what it would be if you were catering to the domestic readership, and you have to think in those terms. So you may have 10 stories today. My job as the AP stringer was select the 2 or 3 that day that would play well internationally, because newspapers, radio stations, TV stations around the world sign up to the wire. They pay on a monthly basis, and they're allowed to take anything down that they think their readership would be interested in. And this is important for what we're talking about here. We're essentially here today to be able to take an idea that anyone may have. Or, as Drew said, a product that even if you don't have one, but say you have an idea and you want to know how to get it to the widest market possible. It's precisely the same thing and it's precisely the same procedure. What I'm going to do in a second is give you a method to take you of dealing with that large mass of information that you've gathered around your idea, how to streamline it into the thing that will target your market most effectively, wherever that market might be. And just to give you an idea of the way it works, that Associated Press job, I had 2 stories that were really, really big, and they gave some insight into the way, from a place like this, you can start to think about markets outside. Two different approaches to very wide circulation. The first was a story about a hotel in Bimini called the Complete Angler. Complete Angler burned down, I want to say in 2006, somewhere around there. And this story in the Tribune made it to, I think it was a little bit on the front page at the bottom, and some nice pictures on page 3 or page 2 where it was color. You know, it was mildly interesting. It certainly wasn't the lead story. But understanding what market you were after, the Complete Angler was the home of American writer Ernest Hemingway for 3 years. He wrote Islands in the Stream there. He wrote Old Man in the Sea there. To us, it may not be a big deal, but to fans of his, to readers, millions of them around the world, it's a huge thing. That is the story I sent that day out of all of the stories that we had to the Associated Press. And it was printed in 800 newspapers around the world. It was printed in China, in India, in Australia. It was on radio stations. It was all over the place because it was a big deal to them. And it was just a matter of understanding how to organize the information I had in front of me and know what the market is I'm aiming at and present it in a way that they would want it. The other story that I was going to mention was slightly different, and it gives you some insight on that. Let me just say, is how you target what you call a lowest common denominator market, the widest possible, something that around the world people are interested in. This story, this hotel, this writer, done. But what if you don't have that and you need to target markets overseas, the widest possible? Another thing that you can do is have a product that targets several smaller markets, several niche markets at once, that it has aspects of it that are interesting to different people for different reasons. And the biggest one that I can remember was when the Bahamas Christian Council convinced the government to ban the film Brokeback Mountain from being played here. It was a front page story locally again, but it lasted for a day or something. It wasn't as those stories tend to. Sent to the Associated Press, again, 600-800 newspapers around the world picked it up, but for a different reason than the other story. It was that it for various reasons, appealed to small markets in different places. So, for example, if you were Western countries, liberal countries that believe an adult has a right to see whatever he wants, printed the story, downloaded the story, and put it on their websites. And I'm talking the New York Times, the Washington Post, the UK Guardian, because of the outrage factor to their readership. This was outrageous that we would ban this movie. People should be allowed to watch whatever they want. Fine. But at the same time, newspapers, TV stations, several people in Islamic countries, for example, picked it up for the entirely opposite reason, because they felt that they had a sort of a defender in the Bahamas. They also didn't allow the movie, and they felt that was the case. And then you have smaller niche markets. The gay rights people printed it in their newspapers and put it on their websites and on their TV stations for their own reasons, as did conservative people who look at it from the other perspective. And it was a case of a product that had almost just as universal appeal, but for an entirely different reason. It just touched buttons in different markets at the same time. And so, having said all of that, once I stopped doing that, I went into a field that is much more closely aligned to what we're talking about. I went into advertising, marketing, public relations here. And I represented a lot of companies that are based here, some internationally as well, and then some that were aiming for a domestic market, and many that were aiming for international markets, and everything from banks to government institutions to small startup businesses like what we're talking about. And in every case, the method that you apply to people's ideas, or that you would want them to apply, is exactly the same. From a news story straight through to trying to sell a digital product from a startup company in the Bahamas to the world. And that is that you organize all of your material. You have this mass of this idea and all of this mass of research you've done around it, all these ideas of what to do with it, how you're gonna market it to this one, and often people don't get lost in that. They don't know what to do. It becomes too big, and they can't see what this thing really is about, and what the crux of it is, and what is the key thing, which we call in news the hook, that's going to sell this to the market that you're after. And what I applied what I'm still applying in public relations and marketing is exactly what I would do for a rookie reporter. And that is, you get a young guy, and he comes into a newsroom, and you send him off to get a story, and he comes back with this massive information. And always the same thing would happen. They'd walk into the newsroom and say, "Oh, you'll never guess what happened just now in the House of Assembly. Andre Rollins said something to Loretta, and Loretta slapped him, and all of this." And you'd say, "Wow, oh my God, look at that." And he would go away and write the story, come back 2 hours later and give you a story, and it would say, "Today in the House of Assembly, the government moved a bill, and then the opposition objected," and then all this boring stuff in about 14th paragraph, and there was an altercation between two. So what happens is people get overwhelmed with the massive information. They can't see the wood for the trees. They don't understand where they're supposed to go with this, and so people revert. It's basic psychology. People revert to something safe. They do things in chronological order. The same way they heard it or thought about it, they put it together like that. But if you are trying to find the thing in your product that will make most people the widest possible market, it'll target them, you have to be streamlined, and you have to get a hook, what in public relations they call a unique selling point, a USP. This is the thing that's going to sell it, and you understand your market, and you identify this thing. The challenge is, how do you identify this thing? How do you do this? And what I would tell young reporters is, forget this large, massive information you just come back. Put it to the side. Start from scratch. Just start writing what you think happened, and start with that thing that you came in here and said. Or how, if you were to tell your day or your idea to your family or your friends, what's the first thing you would say? You start with that. You say that, and you construct the thing out of your head in full. And when you have that as an outline, as several bullet points of which you think is important, then you go and get your massive information and you start to feed it under those categories. You can now separate it and you have a method to put it all into what you'd call a blueprint, which is a list of unique selling points from the most effective as you understand the market that you're after, the thing that you think will get them the most. And you know, if you approach it that way, it may not be that what you first thought was the most unique selling point of your product, your book, whatever it might be, ends up being the one after you've gone through this process that stays at the top of your list. It may be, but equally it may not.